Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hello everyone. We are from Faculty of Mechanical and Manufacturing Engineering Technology. This is our subject code Bmmm 25002 Introduction to Maintenance. Right, let me introduce our group member. First, we have Azim Aiman bin Azman. Second, we have Muhammad Koyum bin Suhaimi. And last but not least, have me, Muhammad Aziz bin Abdul Latif. Alright, we go to the next slide, which is introduction. Alright, hazard is a source or a situation that has the potential to cause harm in terms of injury or ill health, damage to property or environment, or a combination of this factor. Every hazard found in our living or working environment can pose a risk to our health and safety. Hirarc is a compound word which is made up of three consecutive activities running on after the others. The activity consists of hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Muhammad Koyum bin Suhaimi. My metric number B0920104339. From class Bmmm 1/1. So today I would like to represent about definition of Hirarc. What mean of Hirarc? Hirarc is a compound word. This consists of hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control. Also, Hirarc can be classified into three classes, which is hazard identification stand for that something can cause harm for a person. For risk assessment, which is the chance, high or low, that any hazard will actually cause somebody harm. Lastly, for risk control, which is the relative exposure to a hazard is something that poses an immediate physical or chemical effect, such as an explosion or a fire. For next one, which is the implement of Hirarc. What is implement of Hirarc? Implement of Hirarc to identify all factors that may put workers at risk of an accident, to consider the possibility of hazard that may arise under any circumstance or condition, and to enable workers to plan, implement, and monitor preventive measure against occupational injury risk. Okay, the purpose of Hirarc. The first one, we can determine any risk that could endanger employees and any other hazard. Perhaps examine the likelihood of the injury occurring to anyone under the circumstance of a particular case, as well as the severity of the repercussions, which is the risk. And lastly, to allow companies to plan, implement, and track preventative measure in order to ensure the risk is effectively managed at all time. Okay, so that's all from me. I would like to pass to next presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi to everyone. My name is Muhammad Azim Aiman bin Azman from Bmmm 1/1. My number matric is B0920101111. Today, I would like to explain about the quantitative and qualitative. For the quantitative, the mean of quantitative is objective. In case where hazards are numerous and complex, should have safety and analysis, which is GSA. For the qualitative, mean of qualitative is subjective. It uses risk matrix. Okay, now, the difference between qualitative and quantitative. For quantitative data collection methods, first, fixed and more structured techniques, instrument or test-based, number-based to collect information, usually measurable, used for statistical tests, usually large sample size, employs strong scientific control, data type is usually rational or interval, interviews form include closed-ended question. Okay, for the qualitative data collection methods, which is semi-structured or unstructured techniques, no instrument or test-based, text-based to collect information, not usually measurable, not used for statistical tests, usually small sample size, lacks strong scientific control, data is usually ordinal or nominal, And lastly, interview forms include open-ended questions. Now is severity. The severity is meaning measured in terms of monetary, technological, or human impact as well as other factors. The severity, it has 5 different levels of severity. The first severity is catastrophic. For example, numerous fatalities, irrecoverable, property damage, and productivity. The rating is 5. Next, the fatal. The example is approximately one single fatality major property damage if hazard is realized. The rating is 4. Okay, the third is serious. For the example, non-fatal injury, permanent disability. The rating is 3. Okay, 4 is minor. For the example is disabling but no permanent injury. The rating is 3, and the lastly is negligible. For the example is minor abrasion, bruise, cuts, first aid type injury, and the rating is 1. Okay, next, the uncertainty. The uncertainty is background variability distinct from variation causes by identifiable risk. It caused by at least 3 common factor project. The first is bias in estimation. The second is the inherent variability of the work not caused by identified risk. The third is estimating error or error of prediction. It always there at some level of influence. Now is risk. Risk can be presented in a variety of ways to communicate the findings of an analysis so that risk management decision can be made. Risk can be calculated using the following formula, which is L times 2S equal to relative risk, L equal to likelihood, and S equal to severity. This is a picture for the example of risk matrix. Priority. The risk is 15 to 25. Description is high. Action is a high risk requires immediate action to control the hazard as detailed in the hierarchy of control. Actions taken must be documented on the risk assessment from including date for completion. Okay, next is 5 to 12. The description is medium. For the action is a medium risk requires a planned approach to controlling the hazard and applies temporary measure if required. Actions taken must be documented on the risk assessment from including date for completion. Okay, the lastly is 1 to 4. The description is low. For the action is a risk identified as low may be considered as acceptable and further reduction may not be necessary. However, if the risk can be resolved quickly and efficiently, control measures should be implemented and recorded. Okay, now I would like to explain about the Monte Carlo simulation. Monte Carlo simulation is a method for developing a huge but synthetic database of projects similar to the one under discussion. The Monte Carlo simulation is useful for tackling complex issues that are not amenable to mathematical solutions such as schedule. It performs several trials to determine the completion date or other milestone as well as the overall project cost of various project stages in order to create a statistical statement of the project's likelihood of completion. This approach uses a project schedule which was typically prepared to WBS, the ability to capture the primary interface, but not the full detailed contractor schedule, which omitted some works and was frankly not compliant with the scheduling standard. An analysis schedule can capture all work at a high degree of abstraction with less information than is required for daily job assignments or projects, and it can usually be developed or amended to conform to standard scheduling practice. A risk analysis of modest to medium-sized schedule comprising 150 to 1,000 activities can be performed. Okay, this is an example for the graph Monte Carlo. Lastly is conclusion and recommended. Workplace safety is not easy to deal with. Any risk that arises in the workplace must be observed, identified, monitored, and reduced. The maximum danger level in this experiment, according to this case study, is 4, which correspond to a low risk category. It likewise seen as acceptable and does not necessitate further risk reduction. After observing the technique to determine the hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control hierarchy, there are various recommendations that must be followed in order to reduce the risk of harm when doing the experiment. When conduction an experiment, for example, the first thing to consider is safe work practice. Hand gloves must be worn by the individual conducting the experiment as well as suitable personal protection equipment (PPE). Separate the ventilation and air system as well as sanitize the micropipe tips. Finally, use GSA to create a safe work procedure to ensure the job is done safely. So that's all for us. Thank you.